Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Player Zone YouTube channel and to our weekly show, the Premier League predictions for match week 14 now. Getting towards that midpoint of the season, it's flown past. Last week, massive games. From top to bottom, there was massive games, and it really threw my predictions off with some of the results. Come this week, there's no different here. A lot of big games, especially at the top end of the table, and a relegation 6-pointer as well. So we get everything each week in the Premier. It never fails to deliver. In terms of our prediction points, as I said last week, I really struggled. So I got the 5 prediction points, really lowered down my points earning over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Takes our total now to 86 as we came into last week with 81 points. So 86 after 13 game weeks. I'm not too upset with that, but I'm wanting one of those big 8, 7, 9 point game weeks in terms of our prediction points. If you're new here to the channel and the prediction points, you're wondering how it all sort of works. It is 3 points for a correct scoreline, 1 point for the correct result, and obviously 0 if you don't get either correct. As I said, looking for another big week here with a lot of great Premier League action to come. Super excited for the weekend. Make sure, guys, before we get into the video, if you could like, subscribe, and share this channel, that would be much appreciated. And let's get straight into the predictions. Our first game of the weekend takes us to London. It is Arsenal hosting Wolverhampton Wanderers. And interesting to the game this one is because Arsenal obviously not that great in the Premier League last week, and the 1-0 win over Brentford, bailed out by Kai Havertz right at the end there, and some goal line saving clearances from Declan Rice and also Zinchenko. But you go midweek and they're beaten on 6-0, so they've definitely got a bit of form coming into this game. I think they'll definitely obviously be the favoured side, especially at home, considering we know that Wolves are taking some big scalps this year. Man City, they've beaten Tottenham, they've drawn to Newcastle, they've drawn to Villa, but all those games at home, away, they've really struggled. Obviously, again, a VAR controversy centred around Wolves in the Fulham game with some interesting decisions there that should have been probably in their favour once again. So they're not being hit light by VAR right now, and Gary O'Neil is probably pulling every strand of his hair out of his head right now because they've been hard done by once again, but they have been giant killers. You can't put it past them to really give Arsenal a good game here. I think, though, where the game will be separated is that creativity that Arsenal will have, whether it be now Havertz of his 2 goals in 2 games, will he be in that midfield joined by Odegaard, Declan Rice. These guys have the ability to break the game open with some killer passes. Zinchenko will probably come inside and invert. They've just got this ability to break down a Wolves low block, which we expect to see in this game. I think that's where the difference will be seen. You back in Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, or Nketiah up front to put away the chances, just when these chances come. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. If these midfielders can break down this Wolves low block and not allow them to counter at will, I think they'll easily get this game won. I'm predicting a 3-1 Arsenal win. I think they've just got enough in this game, an early goal or 2 just to control it. And right now they seem to always have a goal conceding in them, especially where the Wolves are definitely a threat in the counter-attack. I can see them getting 1 goal back in this one. The next game keeps us in London, up to the G-Tech now. Brentford hosts Luton Town. 2 teams on a similar sort of trajectory. Brentford obviously with some difficult results over the last few weeks, including the loss to Arsenal 1-0 on the weekend. But it plays a really, really good football, and we're seeing that home form come back, and once they get at home, they're a threat constantly in the counter-attack. We know all about that. But against Arsenal, they played a bit more in possession. They were constantly supplying a threat with that high press as well. And obviously saw the Ramsdale mistake nearly led to a goal, but chances for Mbeumo, half chances around the box as well. They could have got themselves in that game and got a result or even a win. So really impressive performance there for Brentford. I think that's what we've seen the last sort of few weeks, especially even away to Liverpool. Looks not great in the score sheet, but the performances are there. And in this game, again, it's another midfield need to stand up. You're looking at Norgard, you're looking at if Janelt's in there, inverting inside in there as well. And the likes of Visser and Mbeumo, can they be clinical enough? Because you're going to have a defence here in Luton that have found their identity in the Premier League. They've obviously drawn to Liverpool 1-1. They've lost to Manchester United at Old Trafford only 1-0, and then got and beaten Crystal Palace 2-1. And it's playing that deep sitting sort of style of play, press the odd chance, and then go and counter, use that pace to hit Chong a few weeks back. Kabore last week, and it was the likes of Morris's and Browns getting the end of these balls. That's what we can expect from them. That's their formula to go forward. Out of all the teams that got promoted last season, they probably look the best in this sort of style of play. They were able to really work hard in defence. The likes of Ted and Mengi, and also Doughty and Bell, these guys at the back, have really come into their own. They've, I guess, adjusted to the Premier League style of play, and they're not looking so out of their depth. And in this game, it's going to be the flanks. I've got Bene, as I said, like Doughty, like to get high and wide. Townsend, when he gets high and wide as well, to get balls into the box and allow Morris to maybe get on the edge of a half chance and sort of score a goal. That's sort of their formula. I think they'll attack this game. Brentford in possession. We know they're not as good as they are on the counter attack, but I still reckon they'll get the result here. I'm predicting a 2-0 win for them, especially at home. They're very good there. And I think it'll be one early goal in the first half and then one just to put the cherry on the cake there in the second half. Our next game is the relegation 6-pointer from the weekend. It is Burnley versus Sheffield United. And obviously Burnley, once again last weekend, the better team for 70 to 75 minutes versus West Ham United. But then, I guess, madness in the last 10 to 15 minutes. West Ham scored 2 goals late from midfield, and it all sort of falls apart again. I think for Vincent Kompany, this is a must-win game versus Sheffield United. If he doesn't get the win, I think it's sayonara his chances as a Burnley coach going forward. He's stuck to his guns. He's stuck to this aggressive, front-footed, possession-based style of play. It's caused him mistakes that led to goals in the past. And in recent weeks, they just haven't had the ability to create enough chances to score goals because they expose themselves so much. And they seem to tie towards the end of the game that teams are getting the best of them. And you saw that West Ham game that at the end there, they just said too much quality, too many legs, and they got the best of them in the late moments of that game. They've got so many sort of bright sparks in this team that just doesn't work, obviously, together. I think they're just not at the level they need to be required to match the Premier League standard. But obviously, they go up against the Sheffield United team, who are also probably not at the level either, really struggling. The odd result here and there. They've been in games, but they never really get results. 2 teams that struggle to get results. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top, because I think the loser of this game, although if they both draw, maybe the managers both go. But if you don't get a win, I think either manager here is looking at the exit door. So a massive game for both. In terms of Sheffield United, you'll be thinking they'll also try to soak up pressure, utilise the Luke Thomas of the world and players in wide areas to feed Ollie McBurney's, Cameron Archer's, even Hamer getting there late into the box as well. They've been sort of the way I see them going about it, especially considering they've mastered that sort of sitting in tactic of just absorbing. And Burnley will be glad to oblige that. They'll glad to have the possession. They'll glad to have chances. I think they'll probably have the ability to break down Sheffield United, but can they get enough goals in this game? I think it'll be a bit of a goal fest in the fact that these two sides probably aren't good enough and they both sort of match up the way they want to play. So I'm going for a 2-2 draw. Would you imagine? I just see Burnley, having to play from behind. I think Sheffield United will counter, get a goal early. Burnley have to get in the front foot. They'll probably score 2 more. Then Sheffield United come back with a late equaliser. But this game is going to be chaos. I think whoever, as I said, loses it will lose their job. So it's going to be a very high tense, stressful situation and a massive chance for either side to get a massive 3 points in the relegation battle. Our next game is out in the Midlands. It is Nottingham Forest hosting Everton. Interesting 2 teams to match up here. Forest obviously last week, just not really at it for large portions of the game versus Brighton, but in key moments they had the chance to at least get a point versus Brighton. Gives White missing some gettable chances down the stretch, butchering possession in key areas. I think Brighton just out-possessioned and out-Brightoned Nottingham Forest at the end. They're a team that likes playing the counter-attack. So do Everton. So it's going to be an interesting match of how these 2 teams go at it. Obviously, Anthony Elanga back in the score sheet. Continue to impress me up front. They're probably the shining star so far this season for them. That midfield's looking better by week. And the back line right now, I think maybe that's the problem right now. Conceding too many goals, giving up too many chances. And I think if Forest want to progress and get out of this sort of mid-range, middle sort of period of the table, they need to improve that defence. Not just through getting players, it's through building connections, building a bond, and setting up strongly the back there. Whether they commit with Toffolo or Laena, who plays at centre half, do they bring play? That's sort of where I'm looking at right now, because I think the midfield's starting to find its feet. The front line, when you give them chances, they'll score goals. It's just how they can stop teams at the other end of the pitch. That's the real problem for me right now. And they come up against the Everton team that are really, really good last weekend versus Manchester United. Arguably the better team. Had more chances, had more opportunities. And despite the fact they didn't score a goal, they were looking really, really good in the final third. So the Nottingham Forest is going to be tested here. You've got 2 informed players in Decore and DCL that are really physical up front as an option down the middle. So they're going to have to match that physicality and presence. And they utilise the wings so well with Dwight McNeil, whether it's Jack Harrison, and then dropping in there James Garner, the creativity alongside Onana and the likes in that midfield, make him a very hard team to match up with. And United had some really great moments. Of the Garnacho goal was a special moment. There's a penalty in there as well. So Everton really that bad on the weekend and probably deserved a 2-1, 2-0 win in the end. But, United with better quality players and more pay players to go over the line. But in this game here, I think Everton, they're looking like they're in good form. I think they can take it to Nottingham Forest. Obviously, a hard place to go and play. But I think Everton right now, the form they're in, the way they're playing their football, I've got them winning this game 2-1. Our next game is up north. It is Newcastle United hosting Manchester United. And two teams with very, very interesting weeks. Both disappointments in the Champions League. One not the fault of their own, one definitely a fault of their own. Obviously, starting with Newcastle, huge win on the weekend versus Chelsea, 4-1 at home. I gave Chelsea so much benefit of the doubt. Newcastle at home are a hard task to deal with. And that front three is really, really incredible. They've got a clinical nature about them. They fight in that midfield there and just make it impossible for teams to go and have an easy time up there, up north. In this game here, we saw last season, Manchester United, I think, looked overwhelmed by the atmosphere that the Newcastle fans brought. And you see that had an impact on Chelsea as well. So I see this game going a similar way they did last season. Obviously, coming out of this week, Lewis Miley has been super impressive. That assist to the Isaac goal, he becomes the sixth youngest Premier League player to make an assist in Premier League history. Just to show, again, they just keep finding players that are going to play a great role and play it well. And obviously, midweek, incredible game versus PSG. Probably the better side in terms of they earned their goal. They were doing well to defend and keep PSG out. And then obviously a really controversial handball coming off the knee onto the arm of Livramento. Mbappe scores that last minute penalty and leaves them in a really difficult spot for their Champions League group. Then you've got Manchester United, obviously the 3-0 win versus Everton on the weekend. Positives there, most informed Premier League side. Great efforts from Kobe Manu. Alejandro Garnacho scores one of the best goals of the season. Andre Onana with big saves. All looked really, really good. And then you get to midweek and Andre Onana makes 3 howlers for 3 Galatasaray goals. United give up a 2-0 lead and a 3-1 lead to draw a game 3-3 and sit bottom of their Champions League group as well. So it's a lot of roller coasters going on for these two clubs right now. United obviously probably the worst of the two sides in terms of confidence in football performances right now. So Newcastle come in as the favourites on top of that home form as well. I think they win this game quite convincingly. It's obviously all going to come down to how well they can exploit that slower back line of Lindelof and Maguire, because it seems like Varane's out of favour. And with Almiron, Gordon and Isaac, the form they're in, and the players behind him, Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, and also Lewis Miley, you think there'll be chances of plenty for Newcastle, just if they can take them. If Andre Onana can stand up, or does he get dropped for Biandia? That's the question that has to be asked. In terms of Manchester United, you'd imagine it's going to be a Bruno Fernandes, Rashford to link up on the counter-attack. If they get anything out of this game, they're going to have to not concede and try and nick one on the counter-attack. Proper Ole Gunnar Solskjaer style from a few years back. So, a very interesting game. I think I've got Newcastle winning this one, 3-1. But with Manchester United, now you just never know what's going to happen. Each team that comes out each week is totally different, and the performances are totally missing as well. Our next game's in the South Coast. It's a bit of a slam dunk, unfortunately. Bournemouth are hosting Aston Villa. Bournemouth, again, I've got to give them props. So, much improved performances. The Andre Iraola style of more possession-based, more front-footed style of football is coming through. And this team's adjusting really well. I like that front four, Kluivert, Solanke, Semenyo, and also Tavernier, who also scored 2 on the weekend. They've got goals in them, but they go up against probably the most informed Premier League team right now in Aston Villa. Unai Emery's team is just exploiting teams for fun. They withstood an early Tottenham barrage to go and get a 2-1 win coming from behind there last weekend. Great football, great goals. The Pau Torres and Watkins goal was well set up and well worked in the end. But the way they played, they could have scored 3 or 4. Obviously, we know how open Tottenham are, but they were playing some great football, Aston Villa. They're an easy team to watch. The way they play their football is just delightful and easy to watch on the eye. I think Bournemouth will not be able to withstand anything that Aston Villa throw at them. The pace on the counter-attack, the quality up front, the domination in the midfield, and one of the best centre-backs going around right now in Pau Torres. It's going to be a wholly hard time for Bournemouth. I think Aston Villa coast this one 4-0. Our next game takes us back to London. It's Chelsea hosting Brighton. And two teams right now that are really hard to read. Brighton with a really, really poor form slump, overturned by the win on the weekend. But Chelsea, you go and draw to City, you beat Tottenham, you score 8 goals in 2 games. Then you concede so many versus Newcastle the last time out. Absolutely get battered. Mistakes from Reece James, mistakes from Thiago Silva basically sums up the game for them. And at no point at all last week did they have control of that game. I get Newcastle's a hard place to go, but you've got to try and absorb some pressure. Take the sting out of the game, have a bit of possession, and try and go from there. But in this game, they just got battered all over the park. And missing Reece James in this game is going to be a big deal versus Brighton. Obviously, Brighton got the 3-2 win over Nottingham Forest last time out. Lewis Dunk also, not smartly, got red carded for abuse to the referee. So both teams will be out their captains and leaves Brighton with another new member in the back line once again, and leaves Chelsea without probably their best player in their team. So interesting sort of match up in that sense. Chelsea being at home doesn't really give them much of an edge, but it's something at least. And their home form in recent weeks hasn't been too bad, obviously overshadowed by that Nottingham Forest loss. But it's just so hard to read these two teams right now. Both are so up and down, have good performances, have poor performances. And both teams, for me, just have a lot of nothing possession. There are a lot of teams that with high possession but create little to no chances or meaningful chances. And it's whoever can take, I guess, their chance the best will probably win this game. Despite this being said, I think this will be one of those ball fests. I can see it going 1-1. If anyone gets a win, it's probably going to be Brighton. I like how Ferguson played in the weekend. We saw the impact João Pedro had coming off the bench. And we know how consistent that midfield is once they get the proper names and faces together. It's just going to be a hard one to call because I think both teams will be fine getting a point out of this game with the form they're currently in. But I think I'll go with a 1-1 ball draw. Not great on the eye in terms of chances, but I guess both teams will take it at the end of the day. Our next game takes us to Merseyside. Liverpool are hosting Fulham, and unfortunately it's probably another slam dunk once again. Liverpool were really, really impressive last time out versus Manchester City, and I love how Jurgen Klopp's bringing on Gakpo and Gravenberch in that midfield and trying to take the game to opposition teams. It's no longer Liverpool, counter-attacking a pressing side. As I keep saying, they go at teams. They try and score goals and win games of football. And they're unlucky probably not to win the game versus Man City on the weekend. Obviously, their own mistakes lead to the goal that City score. And, Darwin had a few half chances, a few great saves from Edison. And they could have scored, 2 or 3 in that game and go on to win that game of football. But in terms of taking it to Man City, probably the only team so far this season that's really taken it to them at the Etihad there. So really good signs for Liverpool and really shows they're in this title race this season. Not far off the top now, sitting in 3rd position, but definitely in striking distance and able to compete with the best as we've currently seen. We know the form that Mo Salah's in. He had a quiet week last time around, so I expect him to score 3 or 4 in this game. And I've been so impressed with Alexis McAllister's work in that midfield as that sort of the deep line playmaker, the guy in that pivot that picks the ball up, gets the ball going in their direction. He's been superb for them so far. Couple that with Virgil van Dijk in some great form as well. And we saw what Trent can do on the offensive end last week as well. You've got yourself a team that's going to score goals, especially at home. They look relentless at Anfield right now. I think they'll work in their favour. Obviously come up against a Fulham team that, once again, puts in a great performance versus Wolves. Deserve it or not, they got the win 3-2. And once again, up and down with their form, it seems. Really hard to read them. A few weeks ago, I thought they'd be amongst sort of the bottom 5, but after the performance last week, I can see them, getting back up the table. Great performances from Willian, Andreas Pereira. Jimenez got the goals not too long ago, and it seems like they're just starting to connect a little bit more. Obviously, this game's all going to rely on Bassi, Tim Ream, Castagna, and Robertson at the back, trying to hold on as much as possible, because we know you can get to Liverpool on the counter-attack, but it's how much pressure you can absorb without conceding a goal is going to be the real marking factor if Fulham can get anything out of this game. I think Liverpool will score a fair few in this game. I've got them win the game 4-1. Fulham might nick one on the counter-attack, but I think Liverpool too good, too strong at home. And that brings us to our penultimate game of the weekend. Back in London, it is West Ham United taking on Crystal Palace in an all-London affair. Two teams that are very, very interesting this season. West Ham haven't been playing particularly well in recent weeks. Obviously, a 3-game Premier League loss streak that was now being snapped with a 2-game win streak. But again, they don't really win games while playing great football. They have great moments of brilliance. They get teams in the counter-attack. And this midfield is just remarkable. I can't stop talking about it. Whether it be Souček, whether it be Ward-Prowse, whether it be Lucas Paquetá, Mohamed Kudus, someone's always coming up clutch in that midfield to get either key goals or key assists or key passes in these games. And it's where they've sort of had the identity come from. A lack of goals up front, no real presence as a striker. You've obviously got Jared Bowen from the flank that ending up playing as a false 9 so far this season. They really struggle to score a lot of goals, but they've had this ability to take on pressure, absorb pressure. They seem to concede in some bad moments, but they're relatively good defensive in the fact that they won't concede in massive clumps. Whenever Zuma's there at the back and Sufau, these sort of experienced heads, they normally play quite well. And Ariola's had to make some big saves this season and stand it up. So I think in this game, obviously they come against Crystal Palace side, who also doesn't score many goals either. They lost a really, really tough loss on the weekend to Luton Town, but it's good to see Eze and Elise back on the pitch. Those guys are their sparks. They create things for the team. And hopefully now that they're both fit and available, and Edouard's in the form that he's in, you'll see some more goals from Crystal Palace, because that's really what's been holding them back. Slow starts to the first half, inability to score. That's really been restricting them from moving towards the mid to top half of the table here. So I think it'll be interesting sort of game, the fact that both teams are sort of finding their feet. Both teams like to counter-attack a bit. I imagine Crystal Palace probably be a bit more front-footed, despite being away from home, considering the players they'll probably likely play. But it's going to be a hard one to pick. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. I just think both teams will probably equal each other out in terms of the way they play, their midfield balances. But definitely going to be an interesting watch. Something to keep an eye on. And big game for either team to prove if they can elevate themselves a bit higher up the ladder. Our final game is probably one of the games of the week, equal with probably the Manchester United and Newcastle United game. It's Man City hosting Tottenham. Man City back at home against another big side, in really, really good form right now, topping their Champions League group, getting a reasonable result versus Liverpool 1-1. They could have had some chances to probably go and win that one, but that game was so hard to call in the end. Both teams really played really, really good football, and so far this season, Haaland's performances, Rodgers' performances, even the defence there, Ake, Akanji, anyone who fills in there, Ruben Diaz, they've all been in very, very decent form. I think for me so far, what I've been very happy with Bernardo Silva. The magician just seems to create everything for City so far this season. And in Alvarez's little drop-off in form, and obviously the absence of Kevin De Bruyne, we're seeing how important Bernardo Silva is to chance creation in this Man City side. Absolutely everywhere on the weekend versus Liverpool. Him and Doku were just incredible in terms of doubling up Trent, dropping into key areas, picking the ball up, finding the right pass, and really being a threat for that Liverpool back line. He'll be the key to breaking open this Tottenham defence. Not that it needs much to open up. We saw on the weekend they played 4 left-backs in that game versus Aston Villa, and continues to play this front-footed, aggressive style of football. And it might become his own worst enemy, as sort of like Vincent Kompany's has been as well. They're going to concede goals. They're not going to be very solid because that midfield's totally ripped to pieces. The backline's obviously ripped to pieces as well, and you're relying on Heung-min Son or Kulusevski for moments of brilliance up front. Even Brennan Johnson trying to just get something out of nothing. They're trying to play this aggressive front-footed style of football, but against Man City at the Etihad, I just don't see them getting much out of it. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, don't get me wrong. I think they'll throw the kitchen sink at it, but I think City has got too much talent. Think of Haaland, you think of Alvarez, you think of Bernardo Silva and Doku in those forward areas. There'll just be too much for the Ben Davies, the Emerson Royales of the world to handle at centre-back. Like, you just cannot see them stopping that. As such, I've got Man City just winning this game 4-2. I think they've just got too much quality. They're in too good of a form. Obviously, Tottenham losing 3 on the trot, struggling to get a team together. I think this is a pretty straightforward win for Man City for me, especially at home. They're so good at that place. Alrighty, ladies and gents, that brings the predictions video for Matchweek 14 to an end. Some big games, obviously City and Tottenham, United and Newcastle United, and also the relegation battle with Burnley and Sheffield United. Could we see a stacking there as well? There's so many great storylines for the weekend to come. You've got mid-table classics at West Ham and Crystal Palace. There's something for everyone this weekend, and hopefully this weekend I predict some scores much better than I have in recent weeks. Obviously, so excited for the weekend's action. I hope you guys are as well. If you did enjoy this video, please smack a like on it, subscribe to the Players Zone channel, and share it with mates. I've loved the support I've been getting on these sort of videos, so I'll keep pumping them out for you guys. Hope you enjoy the weekend's action. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the video very, very soon. Until then, see you later. Peace.